My name is Chandrashekhar Das with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and I'd like to speak a little bit about how I came to this Krishna Consciousness movement. And the story begins probably in the late 60s when I was in Toledo, Ohio, where I was raised. Like many of my friends and my fellow God brothers and God sisters, I had a very nice upbringing, but I had questions. I had profound questions that I asked my parents and my professors and my priests in my religious tradition. I wanted to know, who is God? And I would ask that question very pointedly. And the answer was, God, He is our Father and He's in heaven. So I knew that. But I wanted more specifics because I was a young man and I had profound questions. Other questions like, there's so much suffering, why would God allow it? Who am I? What is the nature of the world? Like that. So I went on my own spiritual journey. I eventually left home and I went to the Himalayas of America, mainly the Rocky Mountains in Denver, Colorado. In Denver and Boulder and in the Front Range, in the mountain systems up and down the state, there are many ashrams. It was like Rishikesh of America or something. And you would find Yogananda Ashram, Ananda Marg Ashram, Kundalini Ashram, TM Ashram, Guru Maharaji Ashram, and I could go down the whole list. Well, I went to all of those ashrams, and I asked all my questions directly. And I was so very disappointed with the answers. And no one seemed very sure of themselves. There was no authority that was quoted. And I continued on my journey. I was living in the Kundalini ashram, Yogi Bhajan. Prabhupada liked Yogi Bhajan. He was a big man. He was sincere. He was not a cheater. And Yogi Bhajan said, your people should be the Kshatriyas, and I'm providing a brain for society. So I'm asking that you Kundalini yogis, you be the Kshatriyas of society. Prabhupada met with Yogi Bhajan at least twice. He was sincere. We followed the 4 regulative principles in his ashram. No meat, fish, or eggs. No gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. And it was a nice experience. We were doing mostly pranayam at 3:30 in the morning, worked in a restaurant called Hanuman's. And one day, the head of the ashram gave me one mantra. He said, my Krishna friend gave me this mantra. And he wrote it on the wall. And this was the mantra. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kaumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. And I had no idea what it meant. But I fell in love with that mantra, and I kept washing pots and pans all day with my mantra. Eventually, I think my heart became a little purified. This one yogi came to town. He was going to give knowledge. This is what he advertised. With his so-called sannyasins, they would give you knowledge. Are you ready to receive knowledge? Yes, yes, I want to receive knowledge. I'm on a quest, a spiritual journey. I want to receive your knowledge that you have. So eventually we were put into a room, and here's how we received knowledge. I swear to you this is true. This is how we ended up looking. I think we did, it was 45 years ago, 40-some years ago. We had to press our noses and poke our eyes, plug our ears, and do a little breathing. Oh, curl our tongue back, by the way, and do this short little breath, like so. And needless to say, it wasn't very fruitful for myself or my friend that I was with at the time. And we came out of the room greatly disappointed. We hadn't received any knowledge. We were just seeing those stars you see when you poke your eyes. So I sat down. I was sad and disappointed. And he said to me, he said, "That only made me hungry. Let's go to the Krishna temple." And I said, "Krishna temple? What's that?" So I'd never heard of the Krishna devotees before. So we made our way to 1400 Cherry Street in Denver. At the time, it looked like an old church. These days, if you go to that facility, it looks like a brand new facility, like it's a glowing jewel of some sort. So we walked in the front door, 1400 Cherry Street, in the spring of '71. And there were about 60 or 70 African Americans. They were all raising their hands and dancing and shouting praises unto the Lord. And I said, "Boy, this is great. This is great energy. I love it." He goes, "Hey, those aren't the Hare Krishnas. Those are the Pentecostals. They just sold the place to the Hare Krishnas. The Hare Krishnas are downstairs." And so I said, "Oh, okay. Well, let's go see them." And so we went downstairs, and there were probably 15 or 20 American white boys and girls, and they had their hands in the air, and they were going Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and dancing, having a great time with kirtan. And in due course, they did the drama that Kazi's men stopped the kirtan. And so at that point, they had manufactured some kind of clay pottery and made it into a makeshift mridanga. And they threw it on the ground, and this mridanga shattered everywhere. And afterwards, Lord Chaitanya came and set the Kazi straight, and we had kirtan. It was something just wonderful. That was my first connection with the holy names. At that time, Tulsidas, who lives in New Vrindavan now, just down the road from the mandir, he was the first devotee to speak to me. And I was macrobiotic back then. That was like the vegan of the day. It was a diet from Japan. There was no milk, no dairy. And so I was abstaining from dairy products. I took prasadam. It was delicious. Everything was delightful. He was speaking nicely, taking prasadam. But he said, "You can eat your sweet rice. This is sweet rice." I said, "Looks very nice, but I'm macrobiotic." He said, "Now wait a minute." And he started to explain to me that this man, and he pointed to a picture of Srila Prabhupada, this man, he says that milk is the miracle foodstuff, liquid religiosity, and it has nutrients and vitamins. So it was quite a long time ago, but he gave me such a nice argument why milk was beneficial in Vedic culture and for society. I said, "Wait a minute, hold it." I said, "If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me." And that was the end of my macrobiotic diet. So something touched me at that time. I continued to travel, and wherever I would go, I'd set the young men and women in a circle, and we'd hold hands and we'd chant Hare Krishna. And I said, "This is the new mantra meditation that I've discovered in Denver." So I continued traveling, and somehow or other I was doing my own teaching of the Maha Mantra. And I eventually made my way to the New Orleans Temple, which was a shotgun house off of Carrollton. Forget the name of the street, it's been so long ago, but it was the Hare Krishna house in New Orleans in 1971. And I took a big feast. My belly was full, was leaning up against the wall. All the guests had cleared out except for me. And I was practically falling asleep, like you know. And then this boy comes up to me and says, "May I help you?" And it was Yogendra Vandana Das, who we've been friends ever since. And I said, sure, you could help me. You could teach me what you know. And so he did that. And I started attending Bhagavatam classes, except then Every time they would say something like super soul, I'd say, wait a minute, what's super soul? And I'd be interrupting the class like 30 or 40 times. But the devotees later came to me and said, we've been learning more since you've been here asking questions than we have in the last 6 months. So I was inquisitive, I asked my questions, and frankly, I became solidly convinced of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. A short time later, I kept traveling west and met, and this story really glorifies His Holiness Vishnujan Swami. Vishnujan Swami, I was introduced to him by Dinabandhu Das and his wife Akuti, who were traveling my direction. I was a hippie, hitchhiking at the time, and I met His Holiness Vishnujan Swami one evening, and he began playing the harmonium in only the way I've seen him play, similar to Prabhupada. He was a consummate musician, and his fingers would just dance across the keys. I can still remember and hear it within. And he chanted Hare Krishna. I remember the melody, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it was this small apartment, one bedroom, in San Antonio. It was just His Holiness Vishnujan Swami and one Marine. I forgot his name now. It's been a long time. He was a Korean war veteran, very tough guy. But he sold spiritual sky incense during the day, and Vishnujan Swami and I would go into a renovated Los Angeles bus, and we would take that bus to a different school every day and have kirtan, and he would preach. Krishna was providing. The spiritual sky incense was the revenue. Maharaj would cook a feast in the morning. I'd do the cleanup, and we'd preach and chant and dance all day long, just imagine. And so I was trained in Vishnujan Swami's unique teaching method, and it was perhaps the happiest time of my life. I think Mangalananda wrote a song. He was also with the Vishnujan Swami at one point. He goes, we were kids back then just looking for the bliss, a ragtag band of transcendentalists. It was Vishnu, Johnny, and a white trash yogi. I gave up drinking and smoking stogies. You could see it in my eyes, I was saved by the Holy Ghost. Singing and dancing and burning up the scene. That's as close to holy as I think I've ever been. So it's practically a story of my own life. It was a wonderful time, and if I could, I'd do it all over again. Okay? My name is Chandrashekhar Das, and I am with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And today we're going to talk about how can I embrace Hinduism when I was raised in the Christian tradition. First of all, there is no such thing as Hinduism. Hinduism doesn't exist. It's not a great world religion, as it's been called, and it's not a philosophy. It's a misused word or misnomer, like the word the American Indians. The American Indians aren't from India. They're Native Americans, native to the North American continent. But we say they're Indians. So this is not just my perspective. This is a scholarly perspective, that the word Hindu is not found in the Sanskrit language. The word Hindu is not found in the Vedic Vishvakosha dictionary or in the Vedic literatures. But the word was used by Afghanis who lived on the other side of the Sindus River from India, which is a traditional border between the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent. So the Afghanis used to call the people of India those Hindus due to a peculiar speech inflection. So Hindus really refers to the people of India. So you might say, are you Hindu? Yes. Well, it might refer just to someone who comes from India. The real religion of India, found in the Vedas, is, of course, Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religious duty of the living entity is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was raised as a Christian. I was very much involved in my religious tradition. As a young man in high school, I used to play guitar at the Mass. That was early, that was before class, so I had to get there early, and I would sing glorification of the Lord with my guitar. I was very active on retreats where young boys and girls would go and we'd discuss spiritual topics and we'd try to grow in spiritual life. But as a teenager, I had profound questions. Who is God? I really wanted to know. I asked that question pointedly to my parents, to my professors, and to my priests. And the answer was just about the same. They said that God is there. God the Father is there, no doubt. And He is in heaven. And we'll know Him in due course, after we die. But somehow or other, my mind and heart was not satisfied with that. And at the end of high school, I was graduating and I wanted a fancy car as a gift, but instead I got a big Bible. But I read that Bible. And in one point it says, in Jeremiah, it says, Lord, the Supreme Lord is speaking in this passage. When you really want to know me, then I will reveal myself to you. So that went right into my heart, and I began my own spiritual quest to grow in knowledge. I saw the Bible contain various sub-religious principles. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. Very nice. But what about the nature of the world? And who is God? And so I studied the Vedic literatures. I studied Bhagavad Gita. I saw that Henry David Thoreau had said, daily I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal verses of Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which make our Western literature seem puny and insignificant. And I found this was a fact, that all essential truths were enunciated by Lord Krishna in his philosophical treatise. I found deep, satisfying philosophy. And so I never felt that I had jumped one faith group to another faith group. I was still the same young man. I was feeling that I'm still a soul within the body, and eventually came across a Vedic aphorism that there's only one religion, and that religion is devotion and duty to the Supreme Lord. And that can be expressed in any religious tradition that brings you closer to the Supreme Lord. And so I felt that I had grown, not changed, as I say, from one faith group to another faith group. This might be piety or religiosity, but real religion and yoga and spirituality, they're all synonymous. That means to make that connection, the soul with the Supreme Soul. I'd always felt that I had grown in transcendental knowledge and understanding of the self and the entire cosmos. Thank you very much. My name is Chandrashekhar Das, and I'm with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And today I'm going to address the topic of why believe in God. So everybody would have their own perspective on this issue, I'm sure. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that He is the dearmost friend. So we might have many friends in life, and they might be very good friends. But then again, sometimes we're hurt by former friends, and we lose friends, and we lose touch of friends. So where to repose our love so that we're satisfied eternally? So according to the world's religious traditions, according to the Vedic tradition, we have an eternal, loving relationship with the Supreme Person. In Vedic culture, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So where to repose our original flavor of love? In Lord Sri Krishna. Because he is our best friend and our original friend. So I had questions when I was a young man. I was seeing so much natural phenomena around me, consciousness, and I was wondering, what is the origin of all this phenomena? Also a question of Vedanta. Vedanta directs us, Janma Jisya Jitaha. The absolute truth is the origin of all of this natural phenomena. So it made no sense to me when I read in my college biology book that all of this phenomena comes from a singularity, which is practically speaking nothing. So everything comes from nothing. This is the explanation. Or it comes from a chunk that Srila Prabhupada said, frankly, is a childish explanation. Where did the chunk come from, after all? Oh, a chunk exploded, and then we see that so much complexity and design. So it made no sense to me. It makes no sense to me now that people are still taught this theory as axiomatic truth. What makes more sense to me is that I can see personalities all around me. I can see I'm a personality, I have personal qualities. So the source of these personal qualities must contain personality. That's logical. I see all of this design. It seems very logical to me that the design comes from a designer. So it makes sense. Here are two foundational concepts, biogenesis, abiogenesis. This biogenesis, that life comes from life comes from God, life ultimately comes from Krishna. Krishna says, I am the generating seed of all existences. And so it makes sense to me. It makes sense of the world to understand that there's a personality behind my personality. There's a designer behind these eyes of mine that are made of billions of cones and rods. What about the brainstem and the brains and the interdependent systems of the body? These things are just accidental. It didn't make any sense to me. So it makes sense when I read the Bhagavad Gita. I understand Vasudev Sarvamiti, Krishna is the source of everything, the generating seed of all existences, and the ultimate supreme spiritual father. And that's where I've decided to repose my original mood of love in my dearmost friend, Lord Sri Krishna. Thank you very much. My name is Chandrasekhar Das, and I'm with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And today we're going to speak about, is God a fake concept or a realistic spiritual being? So the goal of both science and religion is the same: to understand the origin of natural phenomena. As it's said in Vedanta, Janma Jisya Jitaha. What is the origin of phenomena and consciousness? So we see that modern science is interested in such questions. However, we find that the Darwin philosophy begins with a chunk, which is interesting. After all, where did the chunk come from? Or it begins from a singularity, which is essentially nothing. Everything comes from nothing. Nothing comes from nothing. So we're seeing all around us unique natural phenomena and consciousness. We're seeing the consciousness in varieties of species of life, including human beings. So I can conclude logically, I have personal qualities. I have a father. He has a father. He has a father. He has a father, you see? And you go back to the original father, to the beginning. So the source of all phenomena, including personal qualities, personal characteristics, must be a personality. This is logical. There are two foundational concepts, biogenesis and abiogenesis. Does life come from matter, molecules bumping into themselves? Oh, they suddenly became aware of themselves? And where did the chunk of molecules come from? This entire Mahatattva, as it's referred to in the Vedic literature. Or is it more logical to understand that life comes from life? Biogenesis. We see that daily in nature, all around us. But can scientists, by the scientific process, can we create life in the laboratory? It's not been done. It would have made the headlines. We don't see that you can create life in the laboratory. You can take a shell and inject the chemicals that you find in an egg, incubate it, and you've got a chicken. Hasn't happened. No scientist has done any such thing. No scientist has created consciousness in the laboratory. So we give credit where credit's due. That it wasn't an explosion that created these eyeglasses, or these eyes, or a camera, or the watch. There are billions of cones and rods that make up my eyes. And there's so much design in this mechanism. So we give credit to Lord Sri Krishna as the generating seed of all existences, as the supreme designer behind the beauty and design that we see within this material world. So we find it very logical that in fact is not some fake concept pushed upon men and women, but that we understand clearly that there is design, a designer behind this grand design within the material world. And in Krishna consciousness, we call that supreme designer Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. My name is Chandrashekhar Das, and I am with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and today I'm going to address what is karma. So karma is nature sensitivity training. So how do you treat others? And then you'll be treated in such a way. So it behooves us to act in a gentle way, kind and loving to our brothers and sisters, and in all species of life. We condemn racism and sexism, but what about speciesism? So we have, we say, be kind to our fellow man and be kind to the ladies, but what about all species? So we advocate that all species should be shown love and affection, because after all, there's three types of karma. There's karma, there's work, regular work that elevates. There's akarma, which means bhakti yoga, spiritual activities, and there's vikarma. Practically speaking, when we're speaking about karma in Kali Yuga, this age where everyone's zipping out down the roads, zoom, zoom, zoom. Just today in Mumbai, I think it's the world's worst traffic. And the traffic is so tight, even the scooters can't pass. Everyone zoom, zoom, zoom for money. They want to make the money and they want to spend the money. So with no focused purpose in spiritual upliftment, their work becomes detrimental. This is called vikarma, or harmful work. It's harmful to themselves and it's harmful to others. Look what we're doing to the animals. I don't even want to tell you what I saw on my way yesterday. Yes, it was to the Govardhan Eco Village outside of Mumbai. Oh, a 2-hour drive. It was so nasty what I saw regarding the animals. But we're advocating love for man, but what about love for the animals? So this vikarma of harming the animals actually harms oneself. So, of course, if in due course we're harming the animals, then perhaps we'll have to take such a position. Nature's sensitivity training. How does it feel to be abused? How does it feel to be exploited? Whether we're talking about racism, apartheid, sexism, and exploitation, or harming the animals. So we want to be very, very careful because ultimately we'll be shown lessons in life, sometimes very harsh, how it feels to be treated in this way. So the devotees of Lord Krishna, of course, we want to avoid karma, which takes us to Svarga, but Svarga is not adequate. Svarga are the higher planetary systems. Very nice, very comfortable. So why bother with self-realization when you're enjoying so nicely? The devotees of Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's practically given us the good sense that if we're going to take time to act properly, then act on the spiritual platform for our eternal benefit. And as we do, we're benefiting others. So beyond Svarga, beyond common karma, or acting on the pious platform. And this is practically difficult to find in this Kali Yuga, to act very strictly to attain the heavenly regions. May be possible, but very rare. But it's very easy to become Krishna conscious. It's very easy to act in devotion, akarma. Just today at the Mira Road Temple. It's a beautiful complex, brand new, been open for a month. So we were touring the facility, and there was a team of ladies. They were all there talking about Krishna and making flower garlands. Takes them some time because they're so beautiful. So this simple process of making flower garlands for Krishna is akarma. This process of bhakti is akarma. And the activities of bhakti, chanting, dancing, speaking about Krishna, doing some simple services for Krishna, this is all akarma. Going home back to our original position in the spiritual world is very easy. Prabhupada says what's difficult is to remain steadily determined. So please think about acting in bhakti yoga, akarma, no more painful reactions. My name is Chandrashekhar Das, and today I'd like to speak about why does ISKCON, or the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, spend so much money on establishing temples. I'm here in Mumbai at our Heaven on Earth Hare Krishna Land project, and certainly crores and lakhs of rupees were spent on this beautiful project. And I'm seeing that thousands of visitors are coming each day. And I've seen the same phenomena in Pune, and in Vrindavan, and in Mayapur. We'll host 20,000 guests a day and much more on festival days. So previously this plot of land here in Juhu Beach, Mumbai, was overgrown. It was just like jungle, with rats and mosquitoes. Our spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he said, I could sit underneath a tree and teach, but who would come? So we produce very beautiful facilities, and we find that the people in general very much appreciate this gorgeous facility as a place of comfort and education and devotion. And I am practically seeing that the people who come, the pilgrims who come here, even if they're from the Juhu neighborhood, or they're coming from the Mideast, or other parts of India, or we're seeing groups of Westerners. They find that it is a great facility for education and devotion, bhakti and Vedanta. I'm speaking to groups of Westerners throughout the day. So why do they come here? Because they've heard about this wonderful facility, and they're interested and they're curious. And so I'm introducing them. Here's Krishna. And they can see this wonderful process of deity worship. We see that all this energy around us is actually the energy of Krishna. And so Krishna can come in his deity. And he, as the Supreme Controller, he can change matter into spirit as he likes. And as we explain these things to our Western guests, they understand that matter can be transformed into spirit by the Supreme Mystic, Krishna himself, or God. So this energy is God's energy to do with as he likes. And to accept the service of his devotees, he comes as Krishna, Murlidhar. Here, Radha, Rasbihari, Krishna's on the altar. He's dancing, he's playing his flute, and he's captivating us with his beauty. And so it's a good investment to uplift the whole human race. From this temple, it's like a military camp where we take out our Food for Life program. We have many preaching programs. We go to college campuses and we're distributing books for the welfare of the conditioned souls who are frankly suffering within this atmosphere of the material world. But these temples, they give relief. I tell the Westerners, not only from Mumbai traffic, but from the other pangs of this material world. And we want to see the whole world happy. And here's a place where we can all come together as brothers and sisters from different traditions and different countries, and we have different bodies of different colors. What difference does it make? We're all children of God. We're all brothers and sisters in one spiritual family with Krishna as the Supreme Spiritual Father. And people can sense that in the temples there's all types of welfare work going on, uplifting spiritual welfare work. And we're also trying to benefit our brothers and sisters throughout the city. So it's really a base where we can come together and realize our eternal relationship with each other and with Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. My name is Chandrashekhar Das, and I'm with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And today we're going to talk about breaking into prison. Who ever heard of such a thing? We hear about people trying to escape from prison, but people have also been caught breaking into prison. One of my friends showed me an article from the Los Angeles Times that a Mr. Marvin Muller was caught trying to break into one of the state prisons of California. It turns out that Mr. Muller had been a resident in the facility, and he wasn't caught with any contraband on him. He was only trying to smuggle himself back into the prison facility where his friends lived. So this is not unusual. There are several instances of this very unique phenomena of breaking into prison. We usually hear stories about people trying to escape the prison. So what is this called? This is called being an institutionalized prisoner. It means the prisoner has more affinity for living inside the jail than he does for living outside the jail. And in Vedic philosophy, these institutionalized prisoners are called conditioned souls. And it turns out that every time we forget ourselves in our journey of self-discovery, we are breaking into prison. It turns out that every moment that we forget God, we are breaking into prison in this forgetfulness. So here we are in this vast cosmos, trying to have the kingdom of God without God. It turns out that this cosmos, governed by Durga, the warden of this fortress, it turns out that success here in this place is trying to become first-class prisoner. Just like here in Juhu. To me it looks very much like the project is called Heaven on Earth. It looks like Hawaii, where I've spent some time. So everyone's trying to come to Juhu today. Everybody's walking the beach. Everybody's trying to become a prisoner with the best facilities. You go to a jail and you enter a prison cell and the fellow has some nice colorful curtains. He has this little house plant. It's kind of dying. Doesn't do so well in the prison facility. But he thinks, oh, I'm first-class prisoner. Here, it's a 6 by 9 foot room with a toilet and a stainless steel table. That's his facility. But he thinks my friend doesn't have such facilities. So the conditioned souls who are forgetful of their journey, progressive spiritual journey, they are always breaking into prison in this material world. This forgetfulness is itself a defeat for the conditioned soul. So the process of self-realization means to once again remember Krishna and our relationship with him, and leave this material world where we're chained by so many material desires, where the demigods, they're just like the trustees of the prison facility, and we're meant to once again enter our eternal home, where everyone's really hankering for the free light and the spirit of Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. My name is Chandrashekhar Das. I am with the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, and today I'd like to speak a little bit of my pastimes with Srila Prabhupada. There weren't very many, and this is why. Back in the 70s, I was a foot soldier in the Sankirtan army of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu under the Srila Prabhupada, our commander-in-chief. So I did not have a big position, and I did not get Srila Prabhupada's personal association very much. But I can tell you one story I think you'll like. In Chicago, it must have been 1974, Srila Prabhupada was in the temple, and he was about to leave. So, as you can imagine, there were many, many devotees who had come from the region and all over, just to see Srila Prabhupada. So, I knew the temple setup, and so I knew where Prabhupada would be exiting. So I took opportunity to place myself on the ledge. It was a step. There were two on either side of these two doors. So I would be right next to my spiritual master when he came out of the building. So I'm there. I got the best position, I thought. And so in front of me are maybe 600 other devotees who are also anxious to see Srila Prabhupada. And so they're on the sidewalk, going into the street a little bit, and I think on the other side they were just giving enough room for cars to go by without impeding. So we were having kirtan, and in due course Srila Prabhupada comes out of the door. So Brahmananda is just on his other side. Everybody just goes crazy for Srila Prabhupada. If you had room, you could pay your obeisances. some were making their best efforts, some had tears in their eyes, and immediately the devotees were jumping and dancing, and it was a scene of great joy and happiness. So of course, Srila Prabhupada, taking great pleasure in this scene, he came out. I somehow paid my obeisances. I'm right next to my Guru Maharaj, and on the other side, Brahmananda Swami. And so Srila Prabhupada, he comes out and he looks over the entire crowd from one end to the next as we're all chanting and dancing with a broad smile on his face, as if he's looking at each and every devotee. And then from above, from the deity sewing room, the ladies started dropping flower petals on Srila Prabhupada. And so Brahmananda Swami says, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada," over the roar of the kirtan. He says, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, the demigods, they're showering flowers on you." And at that point, Srila Prabhupada became very grave. And he again looked over the devotees. It seemed to me, one at a time, looking slowly from one side to the other. And he said, "Yes, they are all demigods." I remember the one picture I saw today in the gift shop here at Juhu Mandir. There's Srila Prabhupada standing holding a danda, and in back is a purple cloth. And I see this picture everywhere I go. It's a very famous picture, but that's not Srila Prabhupada's danda. Srila Prabhupada didn't travel with a danda. That is Sudam Maharaj's danda, who was about Srila Prabhupada's height. And the story is that that was in Henry Street in Brooklyn in 1972. Srila Prabhupada came there. Murli Vadana was one of the ISKCON Press photographers. Bhargava was the other photographer. And they had put this beautiful crushed purple velvet cloth over the wall of the back gardens, and it was a photo session. So during the photo session, Prabhupada pointed up to us. We were all looking out the windows. The 4 floors of men looking, squeezing their heads out of each window, looking. On the other side were the brahmacharis looking out their windows, watching this transcendental photo session of our Guru Maharaj. So Prabhupada points to all of us and he speaks to the photographer. And so afterwards we said, "Prabhu, Prabhu, Prabhu." What did Srila Prabhupada say? And he said, "May my disciples be in the picture with me." And so Murli Vadana had to tell him, no. I don't know how he told him no, but he said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, we're just trying to get your photo." So that was a nice event. And one time, I'll tell you, in 1972, it was Vyas Puj Day. And that, of course, was in New Vrindavan at the Bhagavat Dharma Discourses. So the discourses were, of course, on top of the hill. We'd be running up and down that hill all day long. But I was in charge of making flower garlands for their lordships, Shri Radha Damodar, who we traveled with. Just imagine, Radha Krishnamurti, in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We would take them to college campuses, and it was just a wonderful program. So every day, our budget for flower garlands for Radha Damodar was exactly $0. So I had to find out some way to get flowers. So I would do that in the parks and hither and thither. But Vishnujan Swami said, "Bhakta Chris, I want you to get flowers, and you're going to be in charge of making our garland for Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puj Day." So what do? I have no dollars. So I ran down to Moundsville, and in a dhoti and shaved head, probably 19 years old, I was running around town knocking on doors saying, hello, it's my spiritual master's birthday tomorrow. Could I pick some of your marigolds? And so the people were so kind. I did that. Almost no one said no. I think everybody said yes. I picked some roses, marigolds, a few other flowers. At any rate, so I made this nice garland that was presented to Srila Prabhupada. I think it was first. And other garlands were given from other parties. Eventually, Prabhupada took off all his garlands because they were piling up, and he left mine on. So all I can say is Prabhupada was most kind to me by doing that, and nowadays you see that picture periodically in the Vast Puja homages. So.